Hello, everyone. Hi. Oh boy, I'm so excited to be here. As always, I'm always excited to be here. I feel like every time I show up on here, it's like the first time and the last time all at once. I'm so excited. So let me know if you all can hear me. I'm using um, my headphones today because I have some background audio, if you will. And I want to make sure you guys can hear me crystal clear. So as you come on, say hi. Hello, everyone. I know many of you are some of you are possibly out in long, long, long lines at your favorite stores. Others of you are saying you would never do such a thing. No judgment either way. So today is the final Bombshell Ascension. If you guys have been present for or watched the replays of the first three parts of this training series, you know that we have gone in many different directions and quite deeply on a lot of important topics, right? A lot of things that maybe we don't even often stop to think about, but are some of the guiding forces undergirding our life satisfaction, our life success, our life's alignment with what we're here on earth to do. And so I'm very excited for what we're going to be talking about today, in which I'm going to show you another path, but not the path I showed you in the first training, not that ascension model, if you will, or map, but this specifically something that I call the Bombshell Journey. So, shall we begin? I love this song. I wish I knew how to pronounce it. I do not, but it's on my Instagram stories if you guys want to go find it. It's something I put on whenever I need to get into kind of a epic meditative mode, which is my favorite place to teach from. So, I have done work with women for a very long time. And I have done the work personally for even longer. In fact, if you guys have had some kind of journey like this yourselves and you know exactly what I'm talking about, I began doing the work before I knew it was work that I was doing, right? I had no idea what I was doing. I just knew that what I was seeing around me as the example of what a woman was supposed to be or should be or could be was not sufficient to satisfy the longing that was in my soul, right? And I didn't even have the words at that point to articulate it that way. I just knew something was off and there had to be more. And a lot of that was because I knew so deeply the character of God from having a very close personal relationship with him from childhood that I thought this experience here as women doesn't match what I know about my father, about my divine father, right? Like this doesn't align with who I know he is and what he's asking us to do and what is so obvious is available to us. So it began a line of questioning and wondering and studying and watching and observing that has now been something I've codified into what I call the Bombshell Journey. Now, if you've been with me for a while, you may know that there is such a thing as the Bombshell Manifesto, which is going to be refreshed, re-released, re-everything. I'm so excited for that. I will tell you more about it later. But if you're familiar with my book or the work that I've done in that area, then you have heard of the 12 pillars of a bombshell, right? And you may have even gotten a beautiful little graphic like this. Yes? So these are the 12 pillars of essentially womanhood, okay? Biblically, yes, in my opinion. You can argue with me if you'd like. Please don't, actually. I won't waste my time, and I hope you don't waste yours. And yet also, I think, so in alignment with simply accurate design that what tends to happen, guys, is two groups of women come to me, okay? There's women who have grown up in Christian culture. Their faith is very, 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 very important to them. And they're somewhere on the spectrum between simply loving God, believing the word of God, and wanting to honor God with their lives, or very rarely, but every now and then, someone extremely nitpicky will stumble into my community, you know, the kind of person who wants to argue over infant baptism with me or so. They're like, how could you, or how couldn't you, just like the nitpicky theology people. And that's cool. I usually just send them blessings and set them on their way to argue with someone else. And then the other group of people who come to me are women who maybe they grew up in the church, or maybe they just simply grew up in American culture, or maybe they're somewhere from Europe or wherever, and they grew up in Catholic culture, but it was never really personalized, right? They're cognizant of just kind of the cultural aspects of the faith, and there's holidays, and like you're supposed to go to church or something at some point, maybe, but like, you know what I mean? It's vague, but what they're struggling with is a disconnect in, again, what they feel they're capable of, what they know they're capable of, what their soul knows is right, works, is available, is possible, and what they're actually experiencing, right? So in those contexts, they'll come to me and they'll want to talk about dating, they'll want to talk about men, they'll want to talk about body image, wellness, weight loss, beauty, skin, all right, all those things. Their career, their sense of purpose, their sense of fulfillment, issues they're having with their family of origin, setting boundaries, breaking, cycles, and having just all kinds of old ways of living that they don't resonate with anymore, possibly never did resonate with, and now they're discovering there's another alternative, right? There's another way. So both of those groups of women come to me, and that's why you'll see me kind of bridging the gap a little bit, right? I am a believer, and yet a lot of people come to me where they're not quite sure what they believe, but they like what I'm saying. So everybody's welcome here. But I do believe in a divine design, right? I believe in a creator who has designed everything, who's extremely wise, who's extremely loving, who's extremely powerful, all powerful, actually, all of those things, all for all of those words. And therefore, the way that things were designed to work is how they best work. And it's even in our best interest. So a lot of people who come out of a religious culture, very shame-based, finger shaking, argue over, again, the nitpicky stuff, culture, are used to the idea that subconsciously it's going to have to suck, right? And certainly life is going to be difficult. There's evil, there's a broken world, etc. But I find that a lot of people are struggling in areas where they don't need to struggle. They just don't really know what they're doing yet, right? And no judgment in the least, right? How many of you have been in an area of your life where once upon a time you didn't know what you know now, and now that you know what you know now, you sure wish you knew it then, because it's a lot easier now that you've learned how to allow that area of your life to flourish, right? So both groups of women come to me and they're looking for how to make things work better. And I love to help them, right? It's an honor, it's a joy, it lifts me up. If you guys want to know, I was thinking, I was like, am I going to do slides for this today? I thought, no. No, if I had like oodles of time and nothing to do with it, I would sit down and do slides. But I like speaking from the heart. I like speaking intuitively. I like speaking what's coming to me as I teach, right? I always pray before this, and God just kind of does what he wants to do at the time I consecrated to him. So when I have slides, it's like, oh, I'm supposed to say that now, but I really wanted to say this, right? So I don't love even my own preconceived structures, because who knows what's going to happen in the moment. Yes. So I was thinking about what I wanted to talk to you guys about today, and how I wanted to have a culmination of this journey, this little mini journey that we've been on together. And you guys know that, in the first training, I charted the Ascension path and showed you also even the business map of how I work with women. In the second training, we really dove into the concepts of mentorship and having a community of women that support you, that guide you, that soften you, but also embolden you and kind of allow you to be the woman you're here to be, and yet not have to walk alone in that design. In the third training, we dove deep into intimacy, which was so much fun. And then I thought today, what are we going to talk about today? And I like, I'm a little bit different, guys. I like leaving a lot of space. I almost sometimes don't even decide until the last minute, which again is why I don't have slides. But I want to know, what am I being almost intuitively told is the thing to discuss today. That's really what it comes down to. So part of me thought, oh, we'll talk about body stewardship today. We'll focus on the concepts within the Bombshell Body course, which so many of you are now in. It's so fun to kind of be releasing that again. And, it's after Thanksgiving. That makes total sense, but it just wasn't resonating. So I was thinking to myself and doing my own thing last night, took a day off yesterday, obviously, as many of you did, and was just feeling into, what do women need to know to be free, and yet to understand what the path to freedom is going to look like, right? Because again, women come to me for help in these areas of life. And while I have solutions, and many, and they work, which is wonderful, I hate to be the bearer of bad news to them, but I feel that I would be out of integrity if I didn't also let them know that the path is not guaranteed to be smooth, even if they are in, the closest possible accuracy to design that they can get, right? And of course, we're all human. We're all going to mess up. We're all going to fail. We're all going to make mistakes. We're, all the things. But the earnestness and the returning and the sincerity, that's what God's looking for, not the perfection. So I also have to tell them that sometimes the journey is going to be bumpy, right? There are the things that we can control, And there are the things that we can't control. Listing out some of the things that we can't control. You can't control if someone's going to choose to leave you. You can't control if someone's going to choose to not come into your life. You can't control the loss of a child. You can't control the birth of a child. You can't control the loss of a job. You can't control being hired by a job. You can't control your parents passing away. You can't control their behavior at all, right? You can't control your siblings. You can't control like there's so much in life that is completely out of our control, right? Out of our grasp. There's nothing we can do about it. So how could I possibly have the guts to say that you can have better results in specific areas of your life when we can all admit here that there is so much that is completely outside of our realm of control, right? Well, I think that the whole point of being a woman, right? The whole point of being here on earth as a human, and of course, again, I'm speaking with women, is to show God who we are, right? To show God what we're made of, what we're willing to do, what we're going to do with our free will, with the time He's given us and the time and place on earth He's put us in, and the family we were born into, and the country we were born, all of the things. What are we going to do with it, right? It's like you were dealt a hand. How are you going to play it? Yes? And how well you play it, quote unquote, but not in a manipulative kind of way, just simply how well do you handle what you've been entrusted with to steward while you're here, right? This is like the parable of the talents, right? That's the journey. That's the journey. So we're looking at mastery as becoming incredibly good at the areas that we can control, so that when all of the areas that we can't control come at us, we're still not thrown off completely. We might be knocked down, but we get back up. We might be thrown off of our center, but we recenter, right? It's mastery is not getting it so perfect that nothing goes wrong, or that things outside of your control don't even go completely haywire. It wouldn't be mastery if it was so easy to obtain, right? It would just be the act itself. It would take no excellence. It would take no practice. It would take no training. It would take no discipline or self-control or surrender. It would take nothing. It would just be, you just show up and it happens. Mastery suggests that there's a difficulty to it. And I don't want you to get like, oh, this doesn't sound like very much fun. It's actually a lot of fun, okay? But the most beautiful fruit of mastery is that when things go, quote unquote, wrong, you're never taken out, because you're rooted in something and someone that cannot be shaken. Yes, we've discussed this a lot over the trainings. And you're really, really, really freaking good at the areas of life that you can control, which is a lot, okay? There may be health issues or ways that your body naturally is that you can't change, but you can change the way you take care of it. You can change the way you think of it. You can change the way you do or don't show up for all the different things that your body needs in order to flourish. You can change the way you interact with your relationship, right? Whether it's your parents, your siblings, your man, your kids, your friends, your boss, your coworkers. You can change the way you order and organize your home, whether or not you allow beauty into your space, whether or not you allow beauty as a tool and a plaything onto yourself. There's so many things that we can control. You can control the way you interact with and think about men, the way you think about sex. Someone was asking me, specifically, what do I mean by sexual mastery if someone is single? Let me be perfectly clear. All of it, really, some of you won't believe me, and that's okay, but it's true. All of this can be done in your mind and in your heart. When I'm talking about that specific area of mastery, I'm talking about you're able to go out into the world and you see something that to an unhealed person would be triggering. You see a beautiful, maybe seductively dressed woman. You see a man looking at her. You see an inappropriate billboard. You see, whatever. And instead of just being immediately pulled out of center by one of the lies and going off into one of the symptoms of shame, anger, blame, denial, just judgment, self-righteousness, horrific thoughts toward that person to make yourself feel better and feel safer, you're able to manage every physical reaction, right? Because sometimes how many of you have a reaction in your body that doesn't match what you want to have in your mind and your heart, right? You are able to master everything that's going on in your mind, everything that's going on in your heart, and everything that's going on in your body. And we do that through investigating the thoughts, investigating the beliefs, investigating the wounds, the traumas, the triggers. That's what we do. There's no physical act even necessarily needed for all of that, okay? So I just want to be clear. Now, when you're on this path, right, and there's all of these things that you can't control, becoming very, very good at things like that, for example, is what allows you to have, and I've used this example before, but it's so worth repeating. In basketball, I played competitive basketball through high school, not in college, was not interested. I was done, yes. But we were trained in this stance, and it's probably common in multiple sports, where your knees are slightly bent, your legs are hip width apart, right? And you can't be pushed. The idea is if you're down underneath the basket and someone shoves you, you bend over, but you don't necessarily go down because your balance is so stable. And a lot of people will teach variations of life mastery or fulfillment or whatever as a sense of balance, but I think that too quickly implies a connotation of everything feels even keeled or you're returning to an even keel. I don't think that's accurate. I don't even think it's helpful or what our goal should be. There are going to be times in life when we are completely unbalanced and totally focused on perhaps a crisis that's happening over here, right? Or maybe finally we get to go on vacation and for 2 or 3 weeks, hopefully, right? Fingers crossed, we get to be completely not focused on anything that we normally have to deal with. That doesn't feel like balance, but it is the blessing and the fruit of mastery, because you don't have to be in balance in order to flourish when you're in mastery. You can be completely dealing with something that is throwing everything off, but because you're in control of your mind, you know how to manage your body, you know how to process thoughts about other people and set boundaries and yet love and forgive, all of these things, you stay in a position of mastery even if things are way out of balance, even for an extended period of time. That's mastery, okay? Now, a lot of times mastery is shoved on us, right? How many of you went through a couple crazy years recently with COVID, right? And many things happened in that time frame that were vastly outside of many people's control. Deaths, loss of jobs, loss of relationships, all kinds of things. Kids suddenly being at home 24/7. All of the things that we didn't quite expect that threw us off of our balance. And many people who thought that they had it together because they had figured out how to strike the balance in the situation with their spouse or with their kids or with their job or with their daily routine, they thought that they were going to be fine, right? Everything was working well. Please no one tip anything over because the whole house of cards might fall down, but if we just stay right here, we're good. And then when that incredible experience of those 2 years hit, a lot of things that had previously been balanced were taken out, right? And many things were revealed. Yes, many things that an appearance of balance was hiding came to light. Massive relationship dysfunction. Unfortunately, a lot of mental health crises and a lot of suicides, unfortunately, right? A lot of children struggling in that time, being completely isolated from their friends, from school. A lot of people who thought that, the 9 to 5 was the responsible thing to do. And lo and behold, suddenly they're laid off and they don't have income at all. Whatever it may have been, it revealed a lot of imbalance that was hiding underneath the patina of a balanced life. But in mastery, it doesn't matter. In mastery, when all hell breaks loose, you still know how to stand, is really what it is. And sometimes even in mastery, just the act of standing and staying standing is impressive, is the feat, is the work, yes? And although that might not sound particularly glamorous or exciting or productive, what's happening in those moments where you're standing in your feminine mastery, even as all hell is breaking loose around you, is that your identity and your ability to be in control, right? Because just because you're only standing doesn't mean that things aren't swirling around you and you don't have to deal with them and have conversations and have responses and take actions. You're slowly forging the woman who you were meant to be the entire time. In fact, I saw a French phrase the other day, randomly enough. You guys know the English phrase, practice makes perfect. Yes? The French phrase, and I hope I don't mess it up, and I won't say it in French, I won't even try, was something like, you only become a good forger by forging, or something like that, right? Like they picked one profession to use as practice makes perfect. But I love that concept because you're being forged in this fire of life just by standing. And by simply not being thrown off or giving up or bailing and just believing one of the lie cultures, you are becoming a master almost without even knowing that that's what's happening to you. Until you look up at the end of that phase and you realize you are in better control of your thoughts. You have maintained relationships and others you haven't been able to control and they've taken themselves away, right? Or you have maintained your body, you have maintained your peace, you've maintained whatever. That's mastery. So how does a woman attain mastery, right? That's been our theme for months now, honestly, and you guys have really resonated with it, which I love because, like I was saying at the beginning of this, it's been a personal interest of mine. Like, what would mastery look like? What does mastery look like? What do I most crave in life? Is it balance? No. Is it peace? Yes, but I can't always have it. It's mastery. So I love that you guys are resonating with exactly what's been on my heart, which is so often the case and why I love to teach intuitively, coach intuitively. But what does this look like to be able to control the areas that we can control while acknowledging and managing and handling all of the areas that we cannot? Yes, that is not necessarily what I was thinking when I developed this years ago, but it still fits it perfectly. Okay. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to first reintroduce you to the beautiful 12 pillars of a bombshell. I'm going to lay them out on our board, which hopefully you'll be able to see, but this is a little clearer. And then I'm going to address something that came up in my heart when I was thinking through what did I want to talk about on this final training. And it was apparently not body stewardship, although that's what I thought it would be. And I'll give you just a little peek. I'm sitting here thinking, should I tell them what it is now? Should I wait till later? I'll give you a little hint, okay? Many women who, everything I just said, they're believers or they're not, or they're trying to align their life with God, or they're just trying to get their life to work, whatever it is. And they come to me for guidance, for mentorship, for advice, for reassurance, even just sometimes of their identity and that it's okay and everything's going to be okay. One of the biggest themes I find surface and resurface, whether you're single, whether you're dating and you're not quite sure you picked the right one, or you're feeling a little bit of fear as you move forward, or you're almost feeling a desperation to move it forward, or you're married, or you're separated, or you're divorced, or you're remarried, is the idea of, Jackie, do I need a man in my life to be a fully actualized woman? Right? Now, some of you might assume that I'm automatically going to say, no, of course not. Girl power, rock on, right? But the nature of the feminine is, I was going to say to be feminine, right? The nature of the feminine is in its existence at its apex of mastery, not masculine mastery, right? Like the more a woman becomes a woman, yes, she's rising into character traits and characteristics that certainly biblically we are all supposed to aim for and aspire to and practice and live out. But there's a certain flavor to her that as she kind of, as in my opinion, reaches feminine mastery, is going to look less and less and less like a man. Okay. Now, I'm not at all, before your mind starts running there, saying that means you stay home, you churn your own butter, you've got your compost pile in the back. If that's your thing, you do you. That's fantastic. My butter shows up in a grocery delivery and I love it. Yes. Like, it doesn't mean roles. It doesn't mean style. You guys remember the difference between design and style? Design being how things work, style being your personal flavor, your personal preference, your personal personality, your personal assignment or calling. But design doesn't change. So when a woman is becoming more fully femininely mastered, it doesn't mean, automatic domestic goddess or something. Thank God, because I would fail. The noise in the back is a cleaning crew I have right now because not a domestic goddess. Okay. But it's something different. It's a feminine essence and aura and nature and softness, yet strength and attract. It's so much more than what we try to tell women they're supposed to be by fitting them into some kind of cultural standard, which we then shame them if they don't quite fit, or norm. Yes, there's so many different ways to be a woman. And yet, of course, also, in my opinion, culture has taken the definition of woman way outside of design. It's no longer a matter of style. It is, we are now breaching design. Okay. My opinion. So what does it look like then to build on these pillars as a woman to attain mastery so that we can control what we can control, not in a controlling sense. It's just, that's the best verb I can think of, right? So we can master the things that we can master. But mastery, again, is bigger because mastery also encompasses how we handle the things we cannot control. But its success is rooted and based in my opinion, our relationship with God first, which you'll see here, but also these areas that we can control. So don't get caught up on the word control. It just simply means what is within our scope of influence. What can we determine? What can we decide? And then because we're very strong in those things, the things that we can't control and decide don't throw us so massively, firmly, just destroy things. the way we saw happen for so many during the 2 years of COVID, right? So I'm going to lay these pillars out, and I'm going to return, don't worry, to the question of, Jackie, do I need a man in order to be a full woman? I can't wait to get there. But that's what was coming up in my heart and mind last night and this morning, of often when we are wounded and we discover personal development for the first time, one of my favorite things on earth, praise the Lord for personal development, saved my life, and it saved many other people's lives too, yes? One of the defaults that we can run to, right? You remember the last training on Tuesday, I believe, we did our training number 3, and we were talking about being in one lie, and then when we get a little bit of healing or a little bit of truth, we default to another lie, right? Where it's like, oh, okay, I get it. I don't need a man. I never did, right? It's not for him. It's for me. It's all about me. It's another lie. So then does that suggest that we have to have a man in order to be the fullness of femininity? Cliffhanger. I'm not going to tell you yet, but that's what we're going to get to in the second half of today. But today, for the first half, the essential aspects of a woman that allow us to have mastery. And what you're going to see, and if you've been in the Bombshell mentorship before, of course, it's being relaunched right now, which is so exciting. And I'm so excited for those of you who are joining. And I'm so excited when you email me and you're like, oh, I get that too. And you didn't even know. I love helping you guys. I love gifting you guys things. It's just a joy to me. So if you have been in there before, you know that the Bombshell mentorship in the past, and to some extent in the future, will continue to work through these 12 pillars. We're going to be doing a lot of other things. We're going to be taking a lot of them that we didn't pay as much attention to in the past deeper. I'm going to be bringing in guest experts, as you guys have heard before, if you've listened to the replays of the other trainings. But this is the building blocks of a woman who's in mastery, so that when life shakes her with something she can't control, she's almost unshaken because she's in such mastery of the things that she can't control. Okay, so I'm going to write these on the board. Let's do blue today, shall we? No, let's do green, because we'll say blue for the boys when we talk about boys at the end. How's that sound? Okay, now this I love. I just love it. I love it because it's truth, because it continues to work, right? One of the hallmarks of truth is that it doesn't change. And this, I wasn't looking at it for several years, and now that I'm revisiting, it's still right on point. And I'm going to show you guys how this builds, right? These are not, you'll see that number 1, unusually enough, is at the bottom. You would think that in a list would go top to bottom, but we're going bottom to top because we're building. Okay, we're building on foundations. The most essential foundation, the next essential foundation, the next, and on and on and on, up to what is not as important, but awfully nice and does make a difference. So the first one, and I'm going to actually draw them differently up here, because this is going to be a kind of visual of moving through this as a process. Okay, so this is to help you understand that it's a foundation that we're building, and then the bottom is the most important, as with any foundation. But when we're actually doing the work over the course of our lives, or in the case of the mentorship, over the course of months, what does that look like? Where do they go? Okay, so the first one is, I'm going to abbreviate some of these. If you guys want a copy of this, if you don't already have it, I'm happy to send it to you. Just drop me a comment or a DM. The first is intimate friendship with God, right? So we're going to say, I'm going to say relationship with God because it's a little shorter. But intimate friendship is a set of words that I chose a long time ago because so many people talk about a relationship with God. And if you've come out of any kind of religious background or Christian culture, or if you're, new to the faith or the kind of worldview, if you will, and you're encountering it now, there can be quite a bit of, have you been a good enough person? Have you built your relationship with God? Have you had your quiet time? Just like a sense of drudgery and duty over it, which there's a beauty to being devoted even when you don't feel like it. But what I want you to understand is that this is a friendship. Like, he likes you, okay? And so when I talk about confidence, you guys have heard me talk about confidence here a couple of times now. I'm talking about, and we're actually going to get to it in number 2 in a second, but it has to be based in something other than you. That's my opinion. I don't think it works if it's just your positive thoughts about yourself and a couple girlfriends sending you encouraging texts. It's very important. It's very helpful. It's very nice. It's actually probably, should be part of one of these pillars is the friendships, the connections that we build with people. But this is the only thing that stays with you in the fire, right? How many of you have been through a fire season? Like we have fire seasons in California. Whew, do we? A fire season in your life where suddenly everything burst into flames and you saw who was who, right? You saw the self-righteous, the supposedly holy, who were suddenly willing to come at you and harm you in ways that you didn't even think a non-Christian would do, right? And often they won't. And yet here's someone doing it in the name of the Lord. How despicable. Some of you have had health crises. Some of you have had children with health crises. Some of you have had the loss of a job that was an identity, perhaps for multiple decades. Some of you have had the loss of a relationship that was an identity, perhaps for multiple decades, right? When the fire comes and many, many, many people run while you're stuck in the fire, right? Because it's your life. You can't get away from the body that's failing or the child that needs help or the epic, massive divorce battle or the total loss of a job and all of the mess of trying to figure out how you're going to fund your family then, right? Whatever it may be, you have to stay in the fire, right? Like you don't have a choice. But a lot of people who used to be your buddies run. And some of them will even say crap about you as they go, right? And it's like, okay, now I know who's who, but you also know who's who. This is essential, right? Again, so many women come to me wanting to fix a problem in their life that is temporal, right? It's like, oh, my marriage is failing. I need to work on intimacy right now. Or, I am now divorced or something and I want to lose the 30 pounds that I've been carrying because I'm getting back out there and I don't have the confidence levels that I used to. I want this changed right now, right? And the problem feels like that's all I'll need and I'll be back to smooth sailing, right? How many of you know that when you solve one problem, another one comes up later, right? That's one of the reasons I love doing the O-class calls for years because, one woman is maybe trying to get pregnant. She's got fertility as an issue that she's struggling with. Then they, lo and behold, become pregnant. They're so happy. They're so excited. And then holy crap, being a mom whacks her from the side. And she had no idea that she maybe would be a little bit less than content feeling sometimes with something that she longed for so many years. It doesn't make any sense. So life keeps changing. People keep changing. This is the only thing that I can point you to that will withstand anything and everything that happens to you, no matter what. And the biggest mistake people make here is mistaking God for Christians. Let's just say it, for Christian people, for Christian culture, for their church, right? I saw a beautiful quote yesterday, I think, and I wish I could do it justice. I didn't memorize it sufficiently, but it was something like, if, I can't recall, but the idea was if a problem with the church makes you lose your faith in God, then your faith wasn't in God, it was in people, right? This is everything, okay? And what it creates through all of those bumps in the road that we have been now listing at length is pillar number 2, actually pillar number 3. Pillar number 2, commitment to purity. Some of you are going to lose your mind because of that word. I may even change it because there's such a backlash right now against purity culture. And, I can see both sides of the story, but people see this and they automatically assume sexual purity. And that's not what I'm actually talking about. I'm talking about design, okay? I'm talking about accuracy. I'm talking about committing to doing things as close to God's way as we can manage to in the mess of life where we are confused or don't know or make mistakes or are misled, and finally continue to return, right? So it's like commitment to purity of heart and design. Because there's a lot of people, this is like, I don't want this to be misconstrued as legalism. Legalists drive me out of my mind, kind of like they did Jesus, right? Like, it's just, and I get it. I used to be one, okay? Like, I get it. But you've missed the entire point of the gospel if you're a believer, if that's where you're stuck. So commitment to accurate design with the humility of heart that God loves so much. Okay. It's like aiming for righteousness without being self-righteous, aiming for the accuracy of design. Because remember, sin means missing the mark. It's not this shame-based, you got it wrong and you're terrible. It's like, oops, missed the mark. Try again, coming back and back and back and back to accurate design. So Relationship with God leads to confidence and security. I call it unshakable confidence. Well, I was going to write unshakable. We'll just go with security. You guys have heard me say this before. I don't love the word confidence a ton. Everything is security, because to me, confidence is something that you put on. Security is when you no longer fear anything being taken away, and you therefore, your feet are both on very solid ground. You're secure. You can't be shaken, right? That's what we're aiming for. That's what makes life masterable, something that you can master. Okay, that's what makes mastery so much easier. If you're not secure, then when some aspect of your life that you previously, maybe unknowingly, unconsciously even, had built an identity around, and people liked you because you were that identity, or you were part of that group, or you went to that church, or you had that amount of money, or you had that job, whatever, you were in that relationship or not. If your security is based on the opinions of other people or in any kind of status or identity other than the truth of what God has done and what he's created you for, it's going to suck. Okay, it's going to suck. And how many people, when COVID hit, I don't know why I'm hitting on that so hard today, but hopefully it's helping somebody. Like, our security for many people got whacked, like just like taken out at the knees, just like the looking at a stool, like the legs just chopped off, right? Unexpectedly, no warning, gone. Where was your security? So many people in those 2 years found out what they had put their security in. Okay, so all of that's the foundation, right? It's essentially these three things. What's your relationship with God like? Do you feel safe with him? Do you feel like you can trust him? Do you have a friendship? Do you avoid him? Right? What's your theology, essentially? Where are you on understanding that there's an absolute design? And where is your heart in judging or not judging other people who are or aren't living in alignment with design? Because that's huge. That's, arguably we could say that's more important to God even than you getting it right, is how your heart is your heart. Okay? Blessed are the pure of heart. So security, confidence and security. What are you based in? Are you unshakable? Is your sense of self and identity and value and worth going to be taken out or applied by someone giving you or taking away their opinion or some kind of status in life, right? So those are the foundations. Then we get to what you could kind of think of as external mastery. Okay, it's I wouldn't say it gets fun, but it gets a little more practical, right? When women come to me, they're not usually like, Jackie, I need a more intimate friendship with God. I need a commitment to divine design, and I need to differentiate security from confidence. Like, no one says that, but ultimately that's the work that we always end up doing in whatever area, even if it's our career, we always end up going back here. Okay, so the next area that again gets more practical is total body love. So it's tempting to say body care or fitness. It's tempting to say just, body image, which often is construed as just how you see yourself without actually changing anything about how you care for your body. I like total body love because to me, it's all encompassing. Yes. If you love your body, of course you would take care of it, right? Just like I've used in the past an example of a child. You don't just verbally tell a child that you love it and then hope it can fend for itself. Like, you feed it, you bathe it, you make sure it gets to bed on time, you make sure, if it wakes up in the middle of the night, what does it need? Like, love is a verb, yes, but love is also thought. You don't sit there and technically perform the earthly needs that the child has, food, shelter, water, etc., and not give it any thought or emotional experience and expression of love, right? I was in the grocery store the other day, and this father was just reaming his maybe 10-ish-year-old son, just on and on loudly in public at the checkout. You never do what I say, and I told you to put all the items on the conveyor belt or whatever, and but you didn't do it, did you? Do the same thing, and like just reaming this poor little kid, who then of course kind of half does what he's supposed to do, and then kind of like, you could just see him, he's like checked out, he's not making eye contact with the child, and he's kind of wandering around distracting himself, like miserable kid. So love is both a verb. Technically he was fed, he was clothed, but my gosh, the way that the parent in the situation was speaking to them was just completely unacceptable. And of course, everyone around is just kind of, you know, because if you know situations like that, you know that actually it's very delicate. But sometimes if you interfere, the child will catch even worse abuse at home afterward, right? It's tough. It's tough. It's tough, right? So I hate things like that so deeply. But you don't verbally tell someone you love them and then not show them that you love them. And you don't do the acts of service, if you will, if we're going to get into love language verbiage, but not actually verbally express with kindness and gentleness and consistency the emotion and like care and concern and compassion of love. So total body love is both. Total body love is how you see yourself. It's unconditional self-love. It's receiving unconditional self-love from a source that is infallible, because you won't be able to do it perfectly on your own, but you need a perfect source. It's looking at how you judge yourself when you mess up, when you skip a workout, when you eat way too many desserts, when you all the things. And it's also having a very loving plan to better align your body with what it needs: better nutrition, better exercise, better rest, lower inflammation, but not from the berating, right? It's that very delicate balance. If you guys were, I think it was the feminine mastery training where I was talking about the body beauty cycle, and it's either berate, avoid, you know, all of those things. We're aiming for love. Love in an accurate plan for care, and love in how we think about ourselves as we pursue it. Okay. Next, is this helpful to you guys so far? Are you with me? Tracking with me? So these are the basics of establishing essentially almost internal mastery, and now we're getting into external mastery, which is taking us closer and closer to the feminine specifics, right? Because I would want all these things for a man, correct? I would want him to have a great relationship with God. I would want him to be committed to a divine design with a pure heart. I would want him to have a deep sense of security so that he can't be yanked around by people's opinions and what they tell him he should do and what they think of him. Yeah. But now we're getting into the feminine, right? Because yes, same thing. I want a man to love his body, but the way a woman does it, because of the way the female body is built, is going to be a little bit different, right? So number 5, this is what we went over on the last training. It's openness to full vulnerability and intimacy. And as tempting as it is to only say intimacy because it's shorter, vulnerability is huge. How many of you know that? Vulnerability is huge. This is, in a way, the person was asking me, you know, exactly how do you get sexual mastery when you're, you know, alone? Learning to be vulnerable is actually a very big part of it. Do you feel safe in yourself and your relationship with God to open up to a person to potentially be absolutely obliterated emotionally, right? Like seriously hurt, rejected, whatever, and know that you're not going to die, so that you have the confidence and security to take the risk in the first place? Or are you under living because you're petrified of being vulnerable? So you will deny yourself what you want. In the case of a woman, this might be she wants to be in a relationship, but dear God, she's not going to put herself out there to be known, right? Like, are you going to deny yourself one of the deepest desires of your heart to protect your ego because you're not open to vulnerability, right? And in intimacy, vulnerability creates beautiful intimacy. Are there more areas of, you know, the physical areas of mastery in that when you're finally with someone? Of course, right? But if you're not willing to be vulnerable, it's going to be hard when you get there, and it's going to be hard to get there in the first place. Yes. So if you're trying to create beautiful relationships with anyone, even friendships and, you know, parents to some extent, coworkers, etc., vulnerability is important. And yet I'm not telling you, this is an art form, right? I'm not telling you to go and be vulnerable like you're just vomiting all over everyone, all of your deepest thoughts, fears, weaknesses, mistakes, like all of the things. Because as you have found, perhaps in your own fire, not everybody can be trusted with the deepest areas of what is true for you. Again, this is not design, but it's like your personal experience. It's still true. It's just not a matter of absolute truth. It's just what you've been through. Yes. So there's a discernment process, and sometimes it takes trial and error and a couple of failures. But the point here is to not close off, because I bet most of you are not so naive if you're watching this and you're over the age of 8, right? Or 18, whatever kind of group is here. It's usually women in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, even 60s. You've probably already learned that you can't trust everyone, right? I hate to say it, but you probably already know that there's many people in the world where it's like, Yep, not talking to you about anything other than the weather. And you're probably even going to argue with me on the color of the sky, right? Like, just there are certain people who you learn, you don't say much to them, yes, because you're just setting yourself up to be harmed if you do. But the point is to stay open. I've been through certain periods in my life which were very tempting to close down in. And I would hear in my spirit so firmly, like not even just clearly, but like an admonition, Jackie, stay open, stay open, stay open. And some of the greatest growth processes of my life have been walking through some version of hell and choosing to stay emotionally open anyway, right? How many of you maybe resonate with having learned to not cry? Like, you don't cry. You suck it up, you tough it out. You just no time for that. Like, you don't allow yourself to feel the depths of grief or betrayal or whatever kind of emotion is coming up based on whatever's going on around you, right? And then how many of you have swung to the other end of the pendulum where you've seen other women in the other side of that spectrum, and that's one of the reasons you've chosen to stay closed off, is all they do is weep and tell you their sob stories, and anyone who will listen will hear about that thing that happened 50 years ago that still very much forms the identity that she chooses to continue to live in, right? So our openness itself is an art form. It's an area of mastery itself. Oh, and today, should I show you now? Do you guys want to see this? I couldn't find a ring. So you know what this is? It's a piece of broken earring. Isn't that hilarious? But there we go. That is what I was talking about on the last training, the idea of mastery, right? So I'll use my finger instead. We have the woman, essentially, feminine mastery, who's the heart in the middle, or the red stone in the middle. This is super duper duper fake. I don't even know what it's made of, whatever fake things are made of. And then all of these little mini jewels around the outside are the areas of her life that she's called to master as a woman. So to me, her core identity and the overall total concept of the fact that she's a God-designed, embodied female on the planet is the red stone. And then body care, openness, vulnerability, intimacy, confidence, security are all of these little stones on the outside. And this was the only thing I could find. But, I really kind of love it. It's perfect because, as you can see, there's this tiny little small red stone next to it. Yes? So to me, especially as a mother, but just as a woman who a lot of women come to for help and for guidance and for mentorship and for encouragement, this is like the woman who is also a feminine embodied woman. Maybe she's a little tiny one, or maybe she's grown, but she also is called to total mastery, but she doesn't yet know even what that encompasses, all of the areas, and she definitely hasn't shown yet. She hasn't started shining in those areas. So it's almost like getting to be a mentor to either your daughters or your nieces or young women in your life or women of your own age or older even in your life. But the idea that as a woman, when we shine and when we master all these different areas, it's an inspiration and a guiding light to other women who are next to us who are watching. So I kind of love that that's the piece that I found, because that wouldn't probably be on a ring. Okay. So in intimacy, same thing, right? With a man, I mean, first, in your own mind, as I hope I have sufficiently now made clear, but then finally, when you're with a guy, it's an art form, isn't it? You're not automatically open, to anybody at any time, in any way, under any different circumstances. There's a discernment process, even in that. There's a balance of boundaries and surrender, of no and yes, right? And yet the key is to not feel that in order to be empowered in our boundaries, we always say no. We always have to say no, or nothing is safe, all of those kinds of things. And that's what we're going to get to in the second half of this in just a bit, when we get to talking about partnership with men, right? Okay. So next, powerful beauty that points toward heaven. Now again, these are my beliefs. Chill out. But I could even just show you the studies where the bulk of what most people find attractive in another individual from even a sexual standpoint, or what's attractive in a man, what's attractive in a woman, the majority of them are signs of health, right? Their skin, the shininess of like hair. If you know the beauty signals, then you know what I'm talking about. There's the health sector. Then there's the femininity sector. So yes, she's healthy, but she's a healthy woman. And then there's more and beyond and cultural. And anyway, we get into it in that. So for those of you who are in the Black Friday bundle. That'll be part of Feminine Mastery that we're teaching next year. So it's coming if you don't already know it. But beauty that points toward heaven. So again, for people who don't believe, fine, that's cool. Most of what people are longing for when they find something attractive is health, is, even the shape of the body, right? When we're all in our head about body shame versus beauty, and we've accidentally intertwined our body with our beauty and our worthiness with our appearance and our actual state of health. But most of what we long for in beauty is our signs of health. Okay. So for believers, yes, there are plenty of verses where we're pulled toward an ultimate beautiful destiny where everything is going to be glorified and perfected and redeemed, and it will be beautiful. And that's why we long for it. So we're not eschewing beauty. I hope that's the correct pronunciation of that word. We're not skipping this. We're not avoiding this. We're not, gosh, I saw something the other day from a believer who I usually agree with. I don't need to agree with everything she says, but it was something like when she takes her daughters to the doctor's office, she has them turn around when they weigh them so they don't see the number on the scale. And she was talking about that as a, aspect of self-love and body positivity and not being concerned by the frivolous things of life. And I was like, if a number on a scale is that traumatic in a medical context, we have a lot of mastery to do in the basic areas, right? I mean, I understand how upsetting certain things can be, right? And it doesn't have to be weight. It can be, a negative pregnancy test if you're trying to get pregnant or something like that. But to literally avoid an entire aspect of being alive because you can't handle your emotional response to it, and you think that numbers like what response it creates is going to be bigger than your ability to master your emotions and your thoughts around who you are, maybe the state of stewardship in your body, what the world thinks of it. Like there's a lot of areas incorporated in just that example to master, I know, but we're not forfeiting mastery here. We're not turning around. Yes? So we learn to master beauty, and it's not through avoidance. I'm not saying that you put on makeup every time you go out. One of these days, I'm going to get on these trainings with no makeup, y'all watch. And I'm going to show you the effect of beauty as a tool. Okay? We'll leave that one there. Okay. 7. Now, you would think that I had already covered this under intimacy, but I did not, because it is separate. Okay? Respect, comfort, delight in sex. Again, people are going to be like, how do you do that if you're not having it? By figuring out what junk comes up when you just encounter culture and working through your thoughts, your emotions, your physical responses so that you are master even before you're it can be done. So enough said. But this is different, right? Because this includes friendships. It includes opening to other people. It's a matter of intimacy with God. It's a matter of admitting certain things to yourself. Like there's a certain willingness to even be self-aware here. Believe it or not, intimate with yourself, and not in that way. Y'all chill out, but like cognizant of your flaws and willing to look at them, right? Like kind of willing to look at your darker sides while still knowing your true identity as you handle them. And that allows you to then be way healthier in relationships with people. Yes, because if you're just trying to pretend you don't have issues and you don't want to look at them, guess where they're going to show up? In your relationships with other people, right? So, but over here, this is actually more about, again, like I was saying a moment ago, what are your thoughts about sex? If you're a woman who's constantly triggered and traumatized by the mention of sex, by watching how culture misuses it, you're going to be owned by like the puppeteers that want you to be offended, turned on, tempted, turned off. Like you're owned by whatever trigger just walked by or didn't. Right? Oh, I don't know how to turn myself on so that I want to be with my husband. I'm just never in the mood, so we never do it. Right? Mastery means you're the boss. You manage your thoughts, your emotions, your body. Okay? And it can all be done without being with anyone else or doing anything physically yourself. So that's separate and it's essential. But can you see how these are starting to kind of pivot more toward the feminine? Yes? I'm not going to teach it. I mean, I actually do really want men to understand beauty, so we are going to do that at some point. But in this context, helping women to heal this beauty wound and understand the the point and the gift and the mastery of physical appearance as a woman, so that it's not used against you and you're not using it as a tool to manipulate. You are its master. Okay. You're the boss. You are the boss. I think I have a poster of that here. Okay. Now, notably, okay, I talk about sex before I talk about men. I could technically transpose these. I could put, what is this? How do I phrase it? Profound understanding of respect and respect for men. Understand, you know what? And I'm even going to change it right now. I may have to update these. Respect and love men. How many of you are like, yeah, I understand them. Technically, I respect them because I have to, but I don't like them very much, right? Ugh, no. This is where we heal our relationship with the masculine, and we understand the masculine journey in the same way that we're just starting to barely chart out the kind of tip of the iceberg of the feminine journey. This is actually something that I want to teach on separately. I'll probably do a training probably at some point next year on like the journey of the masculine heart and like what men experience, who they're meant to be, all of the crap that comes at them that we often don't acknowledge is so heavy, and kind of the path for them to become this beautiful divine masculine, and all of the obstacles and mindset tricks and cultural BS that gets thrown at them in their path to block them from achieving that. And then what we can do as a woman to encourage it. Yes. So I'm looking forward to that. But for now, very, very, very important that we heal whatever's going on there. And these two are so often linked. I'm not going to go down that deeply today. If you haven't watched training 3, go watch it, because that's where we show the links between our relationship with and our thoughts about intimacy and sex, and all the baggage we have from what we may have experienced or seen or assumed from men. Okay. Number 9. So this is like, we could say this is relationship with men, almost. We could do that. This is like the physical external of a woman, because you can love your body and you can have beauty, but if you're not willing to open it and share it, that's how life is formed, is women wanting to share the extraordinary gift that we are. Nobody get offended. Doesn't mean that's all we are. It just means if you're avoiding that, you're cutting off a source of life for yourself, because there's a life-givingness of allowing ourselves to create life. And I don't even necessarily mean physical life. You don't have to have a child to experience this, but the sharing of yourself as a woman in all facets is what brings life to the world. So if you're shutting that off out of fear, you're shutting off a source of life for you too. It's like, I mean, how many mothers are blessed by the birth of their child, and the child's like blessed because it gets to live, right? So it's a mutual blessing to be willing to open to life. Okay. So physical feminine body. Now we're getting into the next 2, which are kind of around provision, right? Like, what are you doing in the world as a woman? Do you have a sense of purpose, and do you have an income? Okay. So this is purpose and calling. Yep. Passion and peaceful productivity in it. So with passion and peace, you could say, I don't even want you just miserable. Like you guys have heard me talk about with business, if you're not having fun, like, I mean, yes, there are survival periods, but if you hate the way you're doing things and you hate your life because of what you're doing, we will want to look at that if we have the ability and the flexibility to be in a stage of life where we can, 100%. Okay. And a lot of people will say, well, I don't understand my purpose yet, Jackie. That's cool. Do you have any idea how much you're going to change the world just by living out the first 8 pillars? A woman who's grounded in God, who's committed to the way that things work in the world, who cannot be shaken by other people's opinions or whether things come or go in life, who adores her body and takes great care of it, who's open to people but discerning of who she opens to, who knows the point of her beauty and she's not afraid of it, but she also isn't like stuck in it, either as a manipulation tool or a way of hoping that she'll be loved enough if she's attractive enough, who has no more triggers around sex, untriggerable sexually. Okay. Doesn't mean she can't be turned on. It means that she's the master. And then has no baggage around men. I mean, gosh, just those 2 would make for an extraordinary woman. So if you don't know what's my purpose in life yet, just live out the first 8 bombshell pillars and you will be a world-changing woman just by showing up in the room. For real. Okay. Number 10, financial independence. Oh, this is a huge part of what we're going to be talking about in the mentorship now, which we didn't before very much, almost at all. So important, whether you're married, whether you're not, whether you want to be married, whether you don't, just being a master of money, able to create it and never really what this comes down to is not having to make relationship decisions, whether you're with your family of origin or with a sibling or even with a terribly abusive boss or in a marriage or in a not marriage, like because of money, right? Being, I think I saw something the other day, economically independent. That was a cool way of saying it. I'll just stick with financial. When you can fund yourself, no one gets to call the major shots in your life unless you let them, which is a whole nother thing on permission. But when you have your own ability to generate income, you cannot be trapped anymore in whatever that might look like. And it's a beautiful thing. And then you get to go help other women create that. Okay. The last two are fun. These are almost like, I want to call them like the decorative pieces, which is not necessarily how insignificant they are, but it can feel like that. The first is social awareness and savvy. How many of you have been in a party with somebody who just doesn't get it? Right? Maybe they like came with you as a friend and like, dude, they just like don't get the social cues. The memo didn't get delivered, like they're just talking about themselves endlessly ad nauseum sans cesse. Like you're just like, keep smiling. I've only got one more hour before we get to leave, right? Like it's bad. So becoming aware of, to me, this is a love language. This is how I love people. So if you ever, you see me speak here, and if you ever see me meet people in person, there's like little mini languages that I'll use that I know they'll be able to receive, right? If I'm talking to a bunch of guys, if I'm talking to a bunch of like super duper kind of super girly girls, if I'm talking to women who are a little more turned off by feminist, or not feminist, actually, they probably are, but femininity and girliness, and they want to be taken seriously, and like they're micro languages. They're basically micro cultures, and understanding where I am and what that person needs in order to be loved. That's number 11. Rather than forcing the way I do things on people, I'm never going to change the basics, but the way I express myself, I may slightly alter. Like when I go to France, I'm not going to sit there and say, what the heck is wrong with you? Speak English. What's your problem? Right? No, they have literally a different language. And if I want to love and serve someone, to some extent, I want to love them in the way that they can receive love, which in part includes speaking their language. And speaking their language can look like understanding how they do life so I can respect it. And that is a huge part of being able to take truth to people rather than having them feel like you're just shoving your way of life on them, which is not how a bombshell behaves. We don't shove. We embody a very badass, anchored, authentic, accurate energy, and then we love people in the way that they're able to receive it, unless they're just so unhealthy that we love them from afar without contact, right? But this is a beautiful way to be able to go through the world with people with many different languages, backgrounds, experiences, beliefs, and have them feel a connection with you that then allows you to love them, maybe to teach them, to help them in whatever way they need. But first, you're earning their trust by learning and bothering to love them in the way that they know how to understand it. Yeah. And this also entails protection, right? So, going into various different situations. And once you have your discernment of who is wise to be open and vulnerable to or not, like I'm a very happy, fun-loving person, but if you've ever hung out with me, there'll be certain situations where I'm on hyper alert, like street smart wise, because I'm aware of potential possibilities, and I'm going to protect myself and whoever I'm with to the greatest extent that I can, right? So it's not just a matter of which, do you lift your pinky finger when you're holding your coffee cup? It's truly being situationally aware. And that's almost getting into the category that we talk about in Ultra of like, you guys from the first training, so the top tier mastermind, but it's being savvy of where you are in every sense of the word, knowing your surroundings, knowing who's there, knowing what their background is, and being able to love them well. Okay, and then number 12 is allure, class, and chic, which is so fun. You could say it's not very important, but how many of you know that when you're in that energy, it's just so much more fun to be a woman. It's just so much more fun to live life. It's just more fun. I don't know what else to say. It's just knowing that as you show up, you feel it's essentially the outward manifestation of the security that you have internally. It's the garnishings, almost the garnishes of having your social awareness and savvy, knowing that when you show up, you know the room and you own the room and you attract people with the energy, but also you know how to behave, right? When I'm here with you guys, I'm blunt. In case you haven't noticed, I kind of cut to the chase. I make a lot of jokes, but in different scenarios, being of highest service to the people there, because my ultimate aim is not, I want to be myself wherever I go. I think that's almost stupid. I am myself wherever I go because of these things. When I get there, my goal is to serve and to love. And I'm not going to go outside the bounds of my own boundaries in order to do that. But since I cover my own bases because of all of these areas that I can control, my body's needs are met. I'm not being constantly triggered by everybody who walks by. You know what I mean? All of these things are under control. I can then focus on service, but I can make it really fun. And so this is kind of when people experience this woman, they'll often, it's so funny because it's at the top, right? And in this scenario, it's at the bottom, but from the foundation of how this is built, it's at the top because people will say, oh, she's so charming. Oh, you just have this energy that's so attractive. Oh, you know, you're such a classy woman. And there's ways that women can put on the trappings of this, the outfit, the posture, the, language, whatever. But when people experience what they attribute to this, it's because she's built. I mean, truly, again, not just a woman who's kind of put on the earrings and the heels and knows how to stand up straight, but like this is what's underneath, and they're giving this credit. Kind of like when people talk about the universe and it's like the one that God created. You mean that one? Anyway, right? Like it's like this, it's fun. And it gives people, it's almost like the user interface, okay, of a phone, right? Like this is what we see, this is what we interact with. But everything that makes it work is behind the scenes and unseen. But if it wasn't there, it would just be like, I may as well print out a piece of paper that looks like the front of a phone. There'd be nothing. There'd be no function. It wouldn't work. We would just see the exterior and be like, beautiful, but not functional. We are putting icing on top of this multi-layered, beautiful. In fact, that's what this is, guys. It's a cake. It's a 12-layer cake. That's a heck of a cake, right? Like it's the tip of a beautiful creation that is deep, very much deep running, right? Like if this is an iceberg and Allure Class and Chic is up here, all down here are all of these pillars. So people love to say, oh, you're so poised, you're so whatever. No, I have dealt with so much of my own junk in so many areas, and now you're just seeing the external calm and the willingness, desire, and ability to love without being triggered by my own internal baggage because of the work that I've done. Okay, that's what I want for you guys. Does it make sense? Yes? Is this helpful? I hope so. I would love to hear what you think, because now we're moving to the final and fun part, which I promised you, which is if a woman has built all of this beautiful, or we're not aiming for perfection. We're just getting on the bombshell journey of building these pillars. I like to go kind of in order. We don't have to. We can jump into an area that maybe is a true struggle, but as we jump into it, we're inevitably going to be looking at the areas beneath it and even above it a little bit. Like it's always going to be all-encompassing, or it's not going to be a lasting, true transformation. But if a woman does this and she's living out this magnificent female design, she's in mastery in so many areas you can't even count, right? She looks like, where's my beautiful little piece of a broken earring? That's what it is. My beautiful little piece of broken earring. She's got so many things going on around her. She's shining in so many different areas of her life. Like you're not even sure what you're looking at. You just know that it looks good, right? It's working. Whatever she's got, you don't know, but she's got something, and you can't put your finger on it because as soon as you want to attribute it to one thing, she's healthy somewhere else too. That's feminine mastery. That's what we're going to be walking through in the mentorship and building the boundaries and the relationships and the financial security that allows us to live this way in peace. Because what will happen, I hate to tell you this, but here it is, when you start to live this way is you will become a walking trigger, okay? For all of the women and even some of the men who have not done this level of work. They'll want to blame you. They'll want to make stuff up about you. They'll want to say it's all your fault. They'll want to say it's easy for you. All of the things. People who were your friends when you had all of these issues, when you start working through them, might not want to hang out anymore because they're happy with their issues. They don't want to change. And you showing up, having worked through your stuff, reminds them that they have work to do and they don't want to be reminded. Right? So it's not going to be a smooth, easy path as you get toward mastery. But as you can imagine, those things happen anyway, right? Friendships shift, people, reveal their true nature to you, etc. Can you imagine how much easier it is to handle that when you're at total peace in your body? When you've already built discernment over who to open to, who not to. When you're chill about your appearance and it doesn't hurt anymore. You're not wounded in beauty. When you're not triggered in sex and men, you have a sense of purpose. Even if you're not clear, you know that just living as this woman is an incredible purpose already because of how few people do. And dealing with the triggers becomes nothing. It becomes something that we're probably going to discuss a lot in the mentorship. And that's a large part of the reason that there's group coaching support, there's one-on-one support. As you grow, things will shift. It will all be for the better. I was talking to a woman the other day, and she was asking me, do you see a cost in this? Do you see, or, is it your opinion that this has a cost? And a lot of people will teach that it has there's a price to pay. And geez, no, there's a monthly rate or there's a pay in full discount. That's the price to pay for working with me in this area anyway, right? But she was, of course, talking about in life, is there a price to pay? And I said, no. And she's like, well, what about, you might lose this or so-and-so might leave or something might. No, it's not a price. And in a bizarre way, if you can really get ascended in the way you look at things, it's a blessing, right? Because the only thing you can control, and this is a perfect segue into the second half of this training, of course it is, the only thing you can control as a woman is yourself, right? You can't control your parents, your siblings, your spouse, your fiance, your boyfriend, your kids, your coworkers, your boss. We talked about the whole list of things we can't control at the beginning. But you have one job on earth. And it's to live in the fullest alignment with your assignment possible. It's to be able, in my opinion, to get before God on your own, right? Because we don't go up in twos like the ark. We don't go up in small groups. We don't go up in family trees. We go up one by one and stand accountable for what we did with our time here. And I want to be able to say, I completed down to the smallest detail the assignment that you gave me. And again, if your thoughts are defaulting to, I don't know what my purpose is, just being an embodied woman already is a clue to at least a huge portion of your purpose. Why would you go out and serve people as best you can if you're just ranting and raving with unhappiness and nastiness and self-righteousness and judgment and blame and denial around all of these areas of men, beauty, sex, body, all of it? I don't consider that living in alignment with my assignment. It's missing a massive chunk, right? So that's all you can do. And as you walk that path, which in my mind is the journey of a bombshell, as you head toward the assignment God gave you, unwaveringly, doesn't mean you don't get off path sometimes, doesn't mean you don't make mistakes. It means when you do, you realign, right? No matter how far off track you got, you come back with devotion. That's the purity of heart he's looking for, right? The person who always comes home. That's your job. You can't control whether other people join you by aligning with their assignment or not. And you don't know what their assignment is, right? If you're a believer, was betraying Christ Judas's assignment so that we could have salvation on the other side of the crucifixion that needed to happen? There's a lot of theological debates around that one, right? How do you know that someone betraying you isn't something that, I wouldn't say God wanted or blessed, but used to create you to be the woman who will do the work he has for you to do? A long time ago, early in my life, God spoke something to me in a certain decision I was making, and he said, this is what will allow you to do the work I have for you to do. And I had a totally different understanding of what that meant at that time. Now I have a much clearer understanding of what it meant. And it's not nearly as pretty as my little, idealized understanding at that time. But oh my gosh, am I in assignment these days? Road has not been smooth, but I'm able to be of more use to more women now than I ever have. And I am more fearless about being it, which is something I prayed for a long time. Right? So alignment with assignment is all we can do as an individual woman. Is other people using their free will to either do what God actually is going to allow them to do to make you, his servant-hearted person, able to do what he wants you to do? Or is it just their free will and they make a terrible decision and God's like, okay, well, I can work with that. She's still in alignment. I'm going to actually use that to make her stronger, better, higher. Is it a cost? When people who were already willing to fall off? When jobs that were apparently not supposed to be your job for the, entirety of your life fall off? I don't see it as a cost. Laser focus on assignment, the only thing we can control. Much of assignment is feminine mastery, right? And then the unique and individual experiences that you go through in life are what kind of shape the finer tuned pieces of your own individual purpose and how God's going to use you. So, all of that being said, as a woman living out mastery, I love this topic. I might sit down for this one. Do we need a man? I don't need a man. Isn't that a Pussycat Doll song? I think I used to love that one. I think I used to rock out to that one in my angry girl days. Do we need a male partner? As we ascend, can you guys still see me? Yes, you can. Perfect. In feminine mastery. What a fantastic question you ask. Or I ask as you because you've asked me this many times in the past. I think a woman in mastery, especially a woman who doesn't run from this one, which is so tempting to run from if you can't read it with the light glare, openness to full vulnerability and intimacy. Remembering intimacy as much, 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 much more than the act of sex, right? I think you can't help it. Okay? Now, I'm not saying that means passivity. I see a lot of things and people writing about the divine feminine and feminine energy and queen energy and blah, 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 which kind of looks like just sit there, and don't do anything. And this applies for whether you're dating and you want to be married, or you're single and you want to be dating and you have an eye on marriage perhaps, or you're married and it's just kind of stale, right? Or dead. I don't believe in passivity at all for either gender. Gosh, definitely not for men, but not for women either. So I would tell you that just being in the authentic, beautiful, alluring energy of a divine feminine in mastery is enough to call out a man or call in a man, right? Whether he's there already or he's not. But sometimes it does take action because in my experience and from what many other people also relate, both male and female, the masculine, divine masculine is usually a couple steps behind the divine feminine, right? She's like maybe a little more intuitive, a little more emotionally available, a little more connected to God by nature. So that can go horrifically wrong if she's not in mastery and she can just become this over emotional, manipulative, really annoying person to deal with. Yes. Or she kind of starts to hear what in my mind is the voice of the Holy Spirit more quickly and is led toward her destiny. And he's trying to figure out where she went and he going to find her finds himself. It's a beautiful path, right? But I'm not saying that. I'm actually not saying that just sitting in this energy in they all just magically show up. No, there's an action orientation even in an empress energy. Okay. It's you don't just sit around and wait, in my opinion. You just simply don't force. So in the context of relationships, I mean, I guess we'll just go there. Would you guys like to go there today? Let's just go there. We're going to be talking about this a lot in Feminine Mastery. I talk about this with my dating clients, talk about this even in the context of marriages, because just because he's physically in existence and has a ring on his finger and happens to live in your house doesn't mean that you're close, right? Doesn't even necessarily mean that you're in a relationship in the sense that you want to be in a relationship. You're just in a cohabitation, perhaps. Yes. So what a woman who's in feminine mastery does with men, in my opinion, is an availability and an indication of sufficient interest that he can pick up the ball and run with it. And in a broken world of men who are not yet divine masculines, I think there's even heavier initiation from a healed woman required if you don't want to end up with a controlling man. Right? If you want someone who's gentle and kind, he's probably passive and scared, okay, in his unhealed state. So there has to often be a little bit more action, but there's never forcing. And I don't like games, okay? So with a lot of relationships, even within a marriage, but definitely in the dating world, like what I want you to embody, and if you have a husband, think about this in the same way, is empresses don't play games. We just don't, okay? We don't like them. But that doesn't mean you're in a hard energy. You're in a soft energy. You're in a beautiful energy, but it is still a boundaried energy. In fact, I'll tell you guys now, next Monday, Lord willing, evening-ish, I'm going to be doing a holiday boundary pop-up. So I'll give you guys more information about that. But if anybody needs a little touch up on their boundaries during the holiday season, it's always helpful. So the Empress is boundaried, but she's not barbed wired. She's not closed. It's just that discernment. So she's in her understanding of and respect for men on the divine masculine journey, aware that he may be lacking in some of the fearlessness and healthy initiation and pursuit of someone who he really thinks is worthy versus, you know, kind of falling back into someone who's a lot easier and maybe is doing a lot of the work for him. She knows he may need some help, but there's no availability for being played. Now, many women, when they hear that, they immediately say, that's right, you know, I don't put up with that. And it defaults into a closed energy, but it's still not a closed energy. It's just a standard, right? It's like, I'm up here. I would love for you to join me. I believe that you can do it. I know this is where you're meant to be anyway, but I'm not going to come down there in the muck and freaking play mind games with you, you know, while you're still in your unhealed state. I'm up here doing my thing. I hope you join me. And if not, someone else will, right? Because the Empress also never loses. I want you to understand, and this is essentially a concept of mastery in all areas, not just with relationships. Back to like we were saying in the beginning, life will hit you in ways that don't seem fair, that aren't expected, that throw you off of your balance, that are just out of your control. But in mastery, listen to me, please, because some of you, this is like a word because you don't believe me yet, but it's true. In mastery, you never lose. Ever. And the real secret weapon, the real reason why that's the case is not because you're so amazing. It's because you're in alignment with assignment, and truly what's going on beneath those words is you're dedicated to being used by God, which means everything that happens to you, he will use for his benefit, which will be for your benefit, believe it or not, perhaps indirectly, perhaps a little painful in the beginning, in the long run. Okay, so you're never going to lose. But back to like a specific relationship example, women who come to me and maybe their marriage is on the rocks, or they're dating but they can't quite tell, you know, is this settling, is it not, like what is going on in this messy world of people who, whatever, all the things. Am I missing out because I'm not settling for the current behavior that's going on and I'm going to lose a relationship? This is really the question of partnership, right? Of every woman in mastery, whether she's single and wants to be in partnership or she's in partnership and it's not going that well. Am I going to miss out on a relationship and therefore I need to quote unquote settle, which is a complex word. In some ways, yes, I want you to settle. In other ways, absolutely never. Okay? Depends on how you're defining the word. Or am I missing out on the fullness of the life that I'm destined for and assigned to and capable of, because I'm trying to, let's switch to, because marriage is a totally different animal. Okay, really. You're already in a covenant, and I don't like to give up on those. So in dating, let's use that example for this, because it's a little easier for describing it now. Am I giving up on the life that I could be able to live by picking this guy who's trying to play freaking mind games with me? Yeah. In that example, if someone's playing games with you, trying to make you jealous, trying to pretend like, that he doesn't care, but it's like, what are you doing? You're never going to lose, but you're not going to close off. It's a beautiful, magnificent, precise balance. You're going to stay in alignment with who you are, which you're going to be tempted to see as only your purpose and calling, the business you're running, your career. And you're going to tell yourself in the moments where it hurts that that's being in alignment with your assignment, and you're essentially going to be closing off from what is a huge, if not honestly, in my opinion, the majority of your assignment, which is being this kind of mastered woman, which includes openness to intimacy and vulnerability and understanding of respect for men, right? Don't close off. Let him play his games. He's going to lose if he continues to play. He's going to. You can let him keep his downgrade. You lost a dude who just wants to play with you. That's not a loss. Someone else will step in who doesn't toy with you. You never lose, but you don't close off. I see so many high-value women who have mastered ostensibly so many areas of these areas, so many areas of their life that are important. They're in control of their body. They love it. They have positive body thoughts, positive body care. Their beauty is beautifully balanced. They're usually not too much in the beauty one, maybe a tiny little bit as part of the closing off. But like, you can't find a man who meets their standards because their standards are Jesus, which there's so many memes. Like, if he's not like, come on, guys, it's Jesus, it's God, no man will be that good. Stop. Right? So your job is not to say, do I close off? Do I not close off? Do I need a partner? Do I not need a partner? It's to stay in alignment with full feminine mastery, which includes openness. And openness might, and often I think does, look like and include initiation as a woman, which I hate. Okay, I'll just girl talk. I hate it. It's such a pain. Okay, but in the broken journey of a divine masculine, they're often stuck. They are. You've either got an over egotistical psychopath type who's coming at you like a heat-seeking missile, and it feels like pursuit, and it feels like being pursued, and it feels so incredibly, masculine and holy until you see the flip side of the coin. Or you've got these passive guys who struggle with insecurities and anxieties and getting out of their head, and you're like, let's go, right? But they're not as far along their journey as you are. So sometimes you have to be like, you can join me here, but you also have to be ready for them not to, without closing off to all men, to all openness, to all vulnerability, to all intimacy because of the pain of whatever his no or mind games or whatever may look like. That's the art form. It's staying open to people who are somewhere else, possibly on their own journey, while staying in alignment with who you are and what you will and won't do. Do you guys see that balance? Can you even hear in that how often women are like, you need to not settle and have higher standards and not put up with that? Gosh, I hear that language all the time. Or, he's toxic, but I love him and just to the ends of the earth, and this is what love really is. And like, wow, I don't think so. Openness, alignment, accuracy, freedom. And in that energy plus initiation, which takes some strategy, and it depends on the context of the situation, which is why we coach, which is why we mentor, right? What I could tell you now would be terrible advice for a woman and a perfect advice for a different woman. But that's what it brings masculine partnership to you almost whether you want it to or not. And hopefully by the time I'm done with you, you'll want it, right? Because it's beautiful. It's beautiful. I almost want to draw something else on the board. Let's just do it right here so I don't have to get up. We use blue, as I said I would. It's a woman, we'll put it near the red lips because hello, that's who we are, and a man, both approaching like ascension, design, accuracy. But it's never fully melded because she's a man and he's a woman. You guys remember the double helix? Let's see if I can draw that. Oh, let's get my other color. I wish I had pink. Right? So union is still going to be two distinct people engaging in oneness. Although, ladies, please retain this, okay? Please retain financial independence even in oneness. But I digress, right? Like you're always going to be two different people with a feminine and a masculine vibe or flavor, but you're both heading toward your own specific gendered version of mastery. That's what you're doing. You guys know, all the funny classic movies, right? I'm thinking of Under the Tuscan Sun for some reason. And she's later in life, she's been through a divorce, I think. I don't quite remember the movie. And then she meets this kind of player guy and figures that out. And finally at the end of the movie, when and it's how all the movies go, because I'll tell you in a second, she's done the work. She's finally come to love herself. She's not running from anything. She's not running to anything. She's just calmly in her own. I mean, it's not like we see all of this built out in that movie or any movie, but just there's a suggestion that she's reached a deeper level of mastery in herself, or people might call it self-love or self-acceptance or confidence, security. I call it, I prefer mastery because it's just deeper. It describes more of how to get there. And finally, the right guy walks in. Finally, right? There's so many movies. Now you're like, well, it's just movies. That doesn't make it accurate. Fair enough. But it's a trend and it's something we resonate with. There's something of truth in this where it's like the closer you get to who you're meant to be, if you don't count losses as costs, but simply as evidence that happens as people show you who they are, as you continue to align, but the essential being this, because like I said, I'm going to say it again because it needs to be said again. I really want you to understand this. And I've done it, right? When we feel like I don't need that, I'm going to be who God wants me to be. I'm going to be my fullest self on this earth. It is so tempting to put blinders on and close off to openness, especially if you've been hurt before. But your assignment includes openness. It just does. That's feminine sexual design. That's how life comes into the world. To pretend that as women fully mastered, fully actualized, we don't have to be open to things is wrong. It's like flat out not true. Okay. So I don't want to say don't worry about partnership because I don't think that's accurate either. Because as we've just described, a guy who's, let's do it like this. Actually, I should have used two different colors. Green is the girl, 2 steps ahead. Not always, but frequently. And then he's back here trying to figure out, is this a mountain? Am I supposed to go up the mountain? Like, what is this thing? No, I think I'll stay back down here and play video games. Well, she's a lot easier. Well, right? Like it's a path. It's a pain in the butt. I mean, for real, it is. I know. But mastery isn't acquired with ease, or again, it wouldn't be mastery. So I'm not saying ignore partnership. If you want to pursue partnership, you can start pursuing partnership for the second you begin this journey, depending on where you are in life. You probably already have. Probably dated before, you're already married or whatever. But the kind of ascended partnership we're talking about, right? In this union of a divine feminine and a divine masculine, like you can begin, in my opinion, you don't have to, but you can begin pursuing the kind of partnership that you want, whether you're already married or you want to be, or you're dating or whatever, you're single. The second you begin working on yourself, because there is, and you don't have to, you can take time out to yourself. You can pause. I tell my dating clients, take a dating detox, and I get it. I've done it. Feels fantastic. Sometimes you just pull back. You just radio silence, see what happens. You go inward for a little bit. See who was worth continuing to bother to initiate with. It's really what it comes down to. It's starting to get a little harsh, but that's how it is when you're talking about the mess of that world, right? So you can pursue actively initiating partnership as you're healing as a woman. I don't want you to shut off. Well, how many things would that shut off? 1, 2, 3. Yeah. Right? You don't need it. But when you're a healed feminine woman and not just a healed human being, but you have that feminine flavor to your healing, you're in feminine mastery. I mean, like, they're going to be around the block, you know what I'm saying? But they're also going to be scared, most of them, because you don't want a, egomaniac. You want someone kind who's probably two in his head. He sees you're only getting more amazing as time goes by. He starts freaking out. See, part of your work, understanding the tenderness of the little boy behind every masculine shell, is reassuring him, calling him out, letting him know you absolutely have what it takes to meet me here. Can't guarantee that I'll be waiting, depends on how long you take, right? Because you want partnership and somebody else will step up. But to encourage him is part of that, okay? So, is this making sense to you guys? Can you see this path? This is the bombshell journey. This is your job, in my opinion. You can, not use that phrase if you don't like it. Your calling in life as a woman, blah, blah, blah. But all of these areas, in my mind, are part of a woman's assignment to work toward mastery with her time on earth. And not just, am I called to be a doctor or a nurse or a lawyer or a social worker? It's what is it? What is the aspect of calling that simply being placed on earth as an embodied woman entails on its own, before you know exactly what your specific personality and experiences and background have set you up to serve God with? Okay. And then when you do all of that, hey everybody, when you do all of that, you can't help but align with that kind of man, but you may have to call him out a little bit. And that includes the man you're already married to. Many women ask me, what if I'm growing and he's not? Fine. I don't have a problem with that. I mean, I understand what she's saying, but sometimes women are looking for, I don't want to say too much out of their husband, because I understand that the longing is union for everybody, like this ascended. We all want it, even if we don't know what we want yet. And it includes phenomenal sex, usually. Okay. So those of you who think, no, it's not what I want, I only want that. It's in there. Just saying. But a lot of times the guy's like, there's a lag period. When I'm working with a married woman and she's rapidly growing internally and she feels like he's almost giving her pushback as she goes, that can be one of the symptoms of his reaction to feeling the calling in him to also rise up. And now he can't avoid it because the woman who's living in his house is rising. Like, he can't pretend it's not happening. It's, she's changing all over the place. What the heck, right? And so he knows he's going to have to change too, but he's got all of his internal baggage to work through and he's not ready to do that yet. But most of the time they come with you. Not always, and you can't control that. Your job is your assignment. But I don't like to give up on them, because I do think eventually most of them come along. Unless you're dealing with someone with a serious personality disorder, and then there's nothing you can do, right? Or even if you're not, he just makes a choice. He has free will, But most men are pulled by the intense, allure isn't even a sufficient word. It's like a divine spiritual force pull that the divine feminine has on the divine masculine. And then it's just, what does he do with his free will? Is he going to come or is he not going to come? You keep trucking, but you stay open and you initiate, in my opinion, in various ways, whatever that looks like for your situation. But you also don't play games. Yes? Cool. And you don't wait your entire life, in my opinion. If you want partnership, you have to see someone's unwillingness to get on board as a decision sometimes. And you get to make your own. Those are for the single ladies. Okay. So, interesting? Helpful? Yes? This is so inspiring to me. There's so much available to us. And the little tiny red jewel of the other women, whether it's our daughter, our sisters, our colleagues, or other members of our church community or business or whatever, watching us live out the journey, the bombshell journey to feminine mastery. That's exactly what we're going to be doing in the mentorship next year. But I also want to lay out, in the midst of this beautiful path I've created, well, beautiful might be a stretch. The handwriting is not that great, but the concept is beautiful, in my opinion. What you're going to experience over the next year if you choose to step into this incredible opportunity we have right now, which so many of you have. And I'm so excited Not just excited because, oh my gosh, it's fun and you're in and blah, blah, blah. Excited because I know what's coming for you. And you don't even know yet, girlfriend. You don't even know how good it's going to get. So let me get a different color marker. Yeah, we'll go with this one. In the mentorship, if you guys are already in, you've been receiving your links. Most of you, almost all of you. I think there's one woman who joined yesterday in Australia. Welcome, beautiful, who has not yet received the link to Body Stewardship, but will. Okay. The first thing you get is actually here. You get the Body Stewardship course. So normally this whole path is the mentorship on its own. Okay. We work through the pillars. We're talking about boundaries. We're building financial independence. We're starting extra streams of income. We're working through our relationships with men and with healing around this area. This is huge. We're dealing with beauty, your calling, your purpose, all of these things, right? That's the mentorship with the group coaching, with the guest experts, with the one-on-one with me, at least for right now. That's why this is such a good time to join. Okay, but for this Ultimate Bombshell Bundle, which is available till November 20, no, the bonuses are available till November 28th. It closes completely on November 30th, which is my birthday, okay? The Bombshell Body course, you have already gotten access to, because this is where so much lies. We go through theology here. Basically, we almost go through almost all the pillars just in connection with what that means in your body, Karen, and your thoughts around your body. There's 10 modules. It's massive. The women in there, you've been sending me screenshots. I love it. I'm so glad that it's already speaking to you. We talk about your vision for your life and rebirthing the dream about what you want to feel like and what you want your body to be like as you go through this world. And then we're talking about eating. We're talking about working out. We're talking about resting. We're talking about your family's body culture, your mother's relationship with her body, all of these different things, right? That's in there. Okay. So it's like a massive jumpstart on changing so much of your theology, so much of the way you see yourself, so much of where you put your confidence and your connections with beauty and your body. Then those of you who this is a particular interest, and this over here, and this over here, we have the O class, which again is being re-released as the 2.0. And that is all of the intimacy work. Previously, it was really around for married women. Now, this time as it's re-released, we're going to be doing the sexual mastery work internally as well, from a position so that if you're not in a relationship, you're by yourself and you want to work through the thoughts and the heart wounds and the physical triggers that, make you want to shut down, or that you just don't feel like you're in total mastery of, we're going to deal with all of those for any woman in any walk of life. Because honestly, in my opinion, even if you never are in a relationship, truly, how many groups of women sit around and bash men and bash sex and bash intimacy and just perpetuate lies because of their own woundedness that they never dealt with, even if they never are in a relationship or don't want to be? So I believe every woman needs to be healed in these areas, regardless of what her relationship status ever does or doesn't look like, or whatever she wants it to look like. There's no need to believe and live in wounds and lies in this area, no matter who you are. Okay? So the O class, and then similar, this kind of area mostly, yes, is the romance reset. Now, this is the bonus that I just added that's only available till the 28th. Okay? This is a very thick marker. I hope you guys can see this. It's kind of frayed. That's till November 28th. Plus, I added 3 one-on-one intimacy calls with me. Okay? 3 times 3. Okay, these 2 things close this Monday night. So if that's of interest to you, those are the current bonuses. And then the entire thing goes away November 30th. At that point, the mentorship, right, the 12 months, although you can stay as long as you like, we're going to keep going. We've been going. Working through the 12 bombshell pillars, building, again, a lot of emphasis on boundaries, breaking control, creating your own financial stability, but doing it all from the space of feminine openness, right? Because again, we're not getting, oh, well, now I just care about my calling and my career and me. No, we're stay open, Jackie, right? We're staying open as we create strength, power, freedom. In fact, I just yesterday started a new Pinterest board. I don't know why. And it was called Love Without Losing Power and Freedom. Because I think that that's basically what today's woman longs for. Yes? And it's like, sounds good to me. Yeah. So These things are going to go away on November 28th. The entire package goes away, including the Bombshell Body course, the O class on November 30th, and then the mentorship will still be available. It will still be at the same price that you're getting everything for. Each of these things will basically be back to its normal $2,000 price. Right now, they're all included at that price with payment plans. 3 more things that are included until November 30th in the whole package, okay? You guys may have heard this, you may not have. Number 1 is feminine mastery. This I'm very excited about because I find, if I can spell it, not that you could probably even read it, that almost all the questions I'm getting these days are about feminine mastery in a broader concept, the divine masculine, the divine feminine. You know, basically being an empowered woman who also is soft and open to love. And am I running from a relationship because I'm afraid of openness and vulnerability, or am I choosing not to be in it consciously because there's boundaries and games and it's unhealthy? Like, what? Help me, Jackie, right? So this is what we're going to go into next year. We're going to talk about sex and God, beauty. That's where the beauty wound, the Allure School content will be in there. Being a high value, high visible woman, and all of this that I've talked about, you're going to be a walking trigger, how to protect yourself and keep shining, but with love, being able to kind of speak to people and wherever they're at in life, but without completely effacing yourself, right? That's not what we're here to do. But knowing that you could be a target, you could be a trigger for people, and how to stay safe and all of that. Believe it or not, creating income is a big part of that. You're going to be visible as you create income, most likely. And also creating income is going to be part of how you create the protection. So, feminine mastery also has, we're going to be going into wealth. We're going to be going into the divine masculine and the divine feminine separately, and then how they come together beautifully. So just the overall piece of a very powerful woman in there. I see a lot of stuff out there about like the goddess archetype and just definitions and connotations of divine femininity that don't resonate with me and that don't resonate with a lot of the women who come to me. We're not going to be chanting mantras underneath the full moon, as we all like, and no judgment. Okay. This is, I am coming from a Christian worldview, and I am not available for nitpicky Christians who want to argue over the minutiae of theology. Okay. But I am coming from that worldview. And yet I think that there are things that Christian culture has not been comfortable talking about in the divine feminine concept that are completely scriptural, in my opinion, and they're just designed. So you don't have to be of my particular belief system to benefit from healing these areas of your life. But know that if you're concerned about, am I getting into kind of the super woo? No, just, it doesn't. There are aspects of truth that we're going to extract, but we're not just jumping off the deep end into some crazy, crazy stuff that's out there. Okay. So the other piece that's in there, so we actually have, so I should do it like this: 1, 2, this is 3. These are the current bonuses, the 3 101 intimacy calls and the romance reset course. Then 4 is the behind the scenes of the next book launch. Okay, so you guys, like I was saying at the beginning, the Bombshell Manifesto is my book. It's hit number 1 on Amazon twice. Once because I did a certain process that I'm going to teach you, and once because it just did, and it was really cool, and I have no idea, but thanks, guys. So I'm going to show you how I write, how to get out something that's very personal and meaningful and intense onto a document, then how to get it self-published, how to get it ranked, how to get it in front of people's eyeballs. It's an intense creation process that's going to be part kind of looking at the war of art and the resistance and what it means to be in your calling and share your message with the world, and also the practicalities of what do you do in order to get something out tangibly as a product that people can then read your message, right? So both. And the final piece, should you choose to accept it, unless I've forgotten something, but I don't think I have, is the Paris Mastermind. This is optional, okay? So it's a slightly different price point, but it's an unbelievable steal because it's actually the lowest tier of the Paris Mastermind, which, as you know, if you know, comes in 3 tiers. This is the lowest price point, but it also includes all of this, which normally the lowest tier doesn't. It's just the trip. So it's insane. But even if you're a little bit afraid that you won't be able to pull Paris off yet, fair enough. Although there's a very low payment plan that begins for Paris. It's like $500 to get started. It's crazy. All of this is only available to the rest of the month. And, you know, I'm going to be creating A ton more content next year. It's going to be a very creation heavy year. We're going to be doing a lot of new work. Like I'm just going to be coaching and creating like out every end, frankly. And so this is an incredible deal. I'm basically giving you the best of my work so far and a pre-entry ticket, if you will, into all of the work I create next year. So the Bombshell Black Friday offer gives you the Bombshell Body course immediately, which exists. The O class, which is going to be refilmed. The Romance Reset immediately if you do this before the 28th, which already exists, you'll be sent. Feminine Mastery, which is going to happen through most of next year. Behind the Book, which will happen about the turn of this year. Paris Masterminds, which happen next year. The new O class, and the mentorship. So going through this content with a one-on-one call with me every month, group coaching call with us every month, guest experts. I mean, if you guys, I think it's the second version of this training that actually has slides where it's all listed out. So if you like something a little bit neater than my handwriting here, I recommend you go watch the second half of that training so you can really see what you're getting. Although I did just add these 2 bonuses. And the virtual intensive bonus is now gone, but those of you who've got in, congratulations. So you're going to be working with me and working through this content and working toward feminine mastery very intimately for all of 2023. And for those courses which come with lifetime group coaching, like the O class and the Bombshell Body course, for life, because I show up on those group coaching calls every month. So this, if you're looking for, I mean, I don't know about you, but around like this beautiful weekend after Thanksgiving is when I start thinking about the next year. And then it's like as soon as December 1 hits, I start thinking about Christmas. So I'm thinking about 2023. What kind of woman do I want to become? What accomplishments do I want to prioritize? What feelings, though, do I want to take priority over the accomplishments? Because I'm not here to accomplish something and ruin the rest of feminine mastery and not love and be flourishing in my health and in my relationships and my relationship with God and my joy and my everything else. I've mapped that out personally. I have my coaches, my mentors, they're on lock. I know what I'm doing. This is your opportunity. If this speaks to you, to prepare yourself to have a charted path and possibly a trip to Paris through all of 2023 at an incredible, incredible discount. Again, all of these things individually are at least $2,000. The Behind the Book, I think, would be $500 when I sell it by itself. But Paris starts at $5K, Romance Reset, O class, Bombshell Body course, all $2K in full. Feminine Mastery, $3K. And all of it is just under $2,000, or a payment plan starts at $197, I think. It's like, it's a very good idea. And I'm very glad that many of you have caught on to that and are like, send me the link. So if you're not already with us, I would love to have you on this journey. Regardless, whether it calls to you or not, I want to encourage you that the journey to feminine mastery is worth your time. I understand completely that it is a busy, frantic world. And if you have heard of the exercise where you're looking at 4 quadrants of your life, the things that are urgent and important, urgent and not important, urgent, wait a second, you guys know what I'm talking about. We're looking for the ones that are non-urgent, but important. There it is, non-urgent and important, non-urgent and not important. Okay, we're going for the quadrant of non-urgent, but important that is so often overlooked. No one's breathing down your neck that you need to get this done by a deadline. No, there's not necessarily a tangible, if you do this, this will happen. If you don't do this, this will happen or won't happen. But these are the areas of life that women often don't look at for decades. And then in their late 40s and their 50s and their 60s and their 70s, they're in a body they don't love, not in the relationship they want at all, possibly, still having plenty of trauma and triggers around beauty, around men, around sex, maybe never feeling like they've stepped into their purpose and their calling, and still kind of feeling socially out of place in the various situations that they get into in life. And all of it possibly coming from a lack of security and a lack of powerful relationship with God and connection to divine design. So I know it doesn't seem important because it's not urgent, but it is possibly, in my opinion, the most important work you'll do on earth, because otherwise, what is our life but just chasing down to-do lists and tasks and times that we're dinged with texts and messages and deadlines that nobody's even going to remember at the end of our lives, or even maybe in a year. This is the work that determines whether we leave a remarkable impact on the world as a woman. You can disagree with me if you want, but I see it all the time. So I invite you, however you choose to pursue this journey, I would love for you to join us, because I don't know of anyone else who's doing this kind of work in this way with the things that I've set up and included to make it as easy for you to accomplish the next steps in your path and beyond as possible. But even if you just decide to go it alone, go it. Do it. Embrace it. Invest in your time, however you choose. This is so worth it. This is what all of the women around us are watching us choose or not choose. Quietly deciding whether they want to grow up to be like mom or grow up to be anything unlike mom, right? Anything but. This is the work that quietly inspires women who we don't even know we're going to touch, right? Like the women who were here earlier, cleaning, were asking me what I do. And one of them was saying, oh my gosh, my daughter is now a wife and a mother, and what she thought she always wanted, but she's just crying every day. She's completely lost her identity in these roles and the expectations and the pressures and not knowing who she is anymore, or being happy in her life. I'm just sharing what I do, You never know who you're going to change. You never know who you're going to influence. You never know who you're going to inspire. Let me tell you, years later, the people who now step to me and say, years ago or 2 years ago or a year ago or whatever. And it's not because you're out there doing it for them. You're stepping into feminine mastery, multifaceted mastery for you, and it's blessing them. So if I can encourage you, walk the bombshell path. Embrace this incredible journey to feminine mastery. It will change your life. It will change others' lives. It will make your life feel worth living. And it will change the world. And if you want to walk it with us in this group, I would be honored to have you. Okay? Much love to you guys. I hope you have a beautiful rest of your weekend. We're headed into the holidays. We're going to have that beautiful holiday boundary pop up on Monday, which will give you a little bit of a taste of the kind of work we'll do in the mentorship as well. And hopefully it'll get you all straightened up and empowered for handling the openness and vulnerability and empowered boundary discernment that is so much fun when we're around delightful people at this time of year. Yes. But God bless you. Thank you for spending your time here with me. Let me know of any questions you have, and hopefully I will see you inside. If not, I wish you the best on your journey, because we need every single woman we can get walking this way. Yeah? Much love. I'll talk to you guys soon. Goodbye.